Hello everybody and welcome to the first part of my Lord of the Rings series review. I'm going to be watching and reviewing the Lord of the Rings trilogy as well as the Hobbit trilogy. Now, unlike most of my previous reviews, I have not seen these movies before. Somehow, I skipped out on the Lord of the Rings. Don't know how I did that. Same with the Hobbit. When I say Lord of the Rings, I'm including the Hobbit, just in case anyone's wondering. Most of the time, that's what I'll mean. But yeah, somehow skipped out on this franchise. I definitely heard things about it, seen clips, things like that. You know, I get some of the references, You Shall Not Pass. But this is my first time actually sitting down and saying, alright, let's watch it. The Lord of the Rings trilogy is actually the sequel to The Hobbit. And I believe it was done because they couldn't get the rights to The Hobbit, so they're like, let's just make the sequel. Which usually I'd think, that's kind of weird. Why would you just skip the first entry and then do the sequel? But in this case, it's not actually a big deal. They do explain things well enough so you don't need to, really, I guess, read or watch The Hobbit. I might be wrong by the time I actually watch it, but I could understand the movie well enough without having that background. All three movies were actually filmed at the same time. There's like 3 years of pre-production. And it definitely goes to show how much care was actually put into this trilogy. So here we are with The Fellowship of the Ring. Came out in 2001. And it's long. It's a long movie. 3 hours. And then I realized, oh wait, all of these movies are 3 hours long. Which at first I was, against that. I was like, why are they so long? But then actually watching it, I realized there's so much you can do with a 3 hour runtime, so much detail you can put in, so much of the book that you don't have to cut out, that you can include in here to deliver, the most cohesive, story that you'd want to tell, right? That's why all these movies were filmed at the same time, why they're all 3 hours long. Well, the Lord of the Rings trilogy, the Hobbit movies came out like 10 years later. With the first entry, it's got to do a lot of things. It has to explain the world. It has to do a lot of world building. And that's what a lot of this movie is. I'm not going to lie, I was bored throughout a lot of this movie because it is just walking around, talking to people, explaining things. I think about at the halfway mark, we're in the elf place. I can't remember the name. I think it's Rivendell, maybe, I don't know. It's the elf place. When they're actually all teaming up. Yeah, all the characters. Here's the thing, as well as it, for a lot of the movie actually honestly boring me, I can't remember most of the characters' names. I can't really fault the movie for any of these things that I've just mentioned, because that's on me. But yeah, I just thought it would be worth noting that at this point in time, I can hardly remember most of the characters' names. Or maybe not. Let's see if I can remember. Okay, we got Frodo, Gandalf, Samwise, Merry, Pippin, Aragorn, Legolas, he was there. There's the dwarf guy, and I've already forgotten. Yeah, I can't remember most of the characters' names, to be completely honest. Oh, and Bilbo. But he's not really in the movie that much. The whole plot of the movie is about the rings. Basically, thousands of years ago, these rings were forged that allowed the different races to rule over their respective lands until one day, this guy Sauron got mad. He's like, I'm gonna make my own ring. I'm gonna take over. So he was like the ruler of Mordor. He decides like, hey, I'm gonna invade the rest of Middle-earth. Until one day, this king... Oh no, it wasn't the king. It was the guy who was gonna replace the king. It's a long movie, okay? One dude, boom, slaps him in the hand with the sword, and he just explodes. So much for being all-powerful. Anyway, over the course of what happened in the Hobbit story, Bilbo gets his hand on the ring from Gollum. The ring basically gives people all power, makes them all powerful, but it also makes them go crazy. Eventually, the ring lands up in Frodo's possession, and then him along with Gandalf, they travel, do some things. Gandalf meets up with his friend Saruman, who is working for Sauron. Kind of similar names. Very similar names. It's kind of weird that they did that. Anyway, they fight. It was actually a really hilarious fight scene, by the way. It's just two old guys swinging staffs around. Yeah, I'm gonna make a lot of Lord of the Rings fans upset with the things that I'm saying and my clear lack of knowledge on this universe. Yeah, the two old wizards were slapping each other around with sticks flying all over the place. Some other hobbits get riled up in the whole thing. Sam, Merry, and Pippin, they get all tangled up in this mess. They go on their adventures. We get the iconic "You Shall Not Pass." A lot of the movie is just kind of like, it's just slow world building. I can't really fault the movie for that, but at the same time, I can't help but feel like I was bored throughout so much of this, and I don't want to be bored because I'm interested. Yeah, then the story ends with Frodo and Sam leaving the rest of the group to go off and do some of their own things. This is after Boromir, another character, just remembered, Boromir. He's getting corrupted by the ring. He wants to take it from Frodo. He dies. To unrelated injuries, I think. Anyway, yeah, because he's fighting off other people because he knows he gets corrupted. Anyway, yeah, after that, Frodo and Sam, they're going to Mordor by themselves. Aragorn, Legolas, and I'm going to put the character's name here because I can't remember. That guy. They're off doing their own things. Boromir's dead. He bit the bullet. Also, Gandalf dies. But I know he's in the other movies, so I didn't really care much when he died. Yeah, so it's very much just the first part of the story. It's kind of hard to, really go super in-depth with everything, because a lot of it is just walking around, exploring these new areas. I'm also assuming that you guys have seen the movie, so I don't have to go in-depth with literally every single plot point. Hopefully you've seen the movie, so at least some of what my rambling makes sense to you, as someone who has just watched this clearly for the first time. Because I feel like I don't know what I'm talking about at all. Almost forgot. The music is okay. It's just fine. It's nothing really special. The effects are actually really good for its time. It's 2001. I mean, if you look at something like Spider-Man, wow, I can see why people thought the effects when that came out were pretty bad, because the effects in this movie are actually really good for its time. And the whole visual, storytelling, all the different areas, there's like I said at the beginning of this review, there is a lot of detail and care put into a lot of, pretty much everything in this movie. So I'm going to give it my score of great. Originally, I was going to give it my score of good, because I just felt bored throughout a lot of this movie, and I couldn't remember characters' names, and I just wasn't as invested as I wanted to be. However, I am going to give it my score of great because I can't really fault the movie for these things. And, it's my fault that I can't remember the characters' names. It's not that they don't say their names. My first time watching Fellowship of the Ring. I feel like it's mentally exhausting talking about how much, happened in this movie. I'm just constantly fumbling through my words here. Hopefully what I said makes sense, because next time I'm going to be talking about the next part of this trilogy, The Two Towers. So that's going to do it for this review. I think it's great. It's got a lot of good things in it, a lot of good detail. A lot of the movie had to be spent for world building, and just the first time I watched it, I wasn't very as invested as I wanted to be, but that's sort of my fault. I can't really fault the movie for me not remembering characters' names, but it seems like this is a very cohesive trilogy, but we'll just have to see next time. Hopefully you all did enjoy. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.